Looking for that great next read or your new favorite author? Check out Amy's Bookshelf Reviews recommendations. You won't be disappointed. Welcome to Amy's Bookshelf Reviews podcast. It is a spin-off of the website and book review site of Amy's Bookshelf Reviews. Amy's Bookshelf Reviews podcast is about book reviews, a writer's muse, a book's peruse, author interviews, and literary news. Welcome to the new year, where new things may happen with this. I hope you all enjoy, and thank you for listening.
Good evening, listeners. I'm Amy, and welcome to Amy's Bookshelf Reviews podcast. I want to discuss something that is, it's inspired by my dad. My dad at this time is in a memory care facility, and he is suffering from dementia. And there's still little bits and pieces of my dad that are still in there. But I was thinking a while ago when I was looking to do some research on a topic for something like I'm currently writing a short story, but I have a lot of short stories that have started and I haven't really been able to get back to them. But in one path of my research led to another author who actually is really experienced in the topic I was looking for, and had some wonderful insight. And I'm hoping to get that author scheduled for the show soon as an expert in AI. He has done a lot of research, and I have been reading his white papers and things like that. And in the process of the research, and my thoughts were, when I was doing research for my nonfiction historical book about my hometown, and how it started. I used library resources. I used the Historical Society's resources. I found resources that led to other resources that led to something else, and to a place where I could read, and in some cases download books that are no longer in print, but someone had the thought to take an old book and scan it in page by page. So it's not like somebody like typed it in and were retelling the story. They actually scanned in these books. And to me, they were extremely interesting. And the fact that someone had the forethought of just creating, a digital version of that book, and actual as its book, not, something that gets converted to a digital format, say like Kindle or other electronic or digital stories. When I was a kid, if I had to do research for paper for school, we had to write reports and do presentations that, depending on the topic of what it was. And most of the time we could do our research in the school's library or our local public library. And depending on where I lived at the time, the library could be very large and has a lot of information, and some it's small, and there is a limited space for books and things like that. The library at the high school or middle school it contained some information. But at home, we had the entire set of the Encyclopedia Britannica. I don't know the year, and those books are long gone, but I remember going to book after book to see how it would be categorized, the subject I was doing within the encyclopedia, and to determine which volume I needed to do research on a particular topic. And when I mentioned before that I was inspired by um, my father uh, had an IQ of 162. Um, and that was after he had a brain trauma at the age of 13. Um, and he would read, he would find a topic that interested him. He would do it. And then when he thought he learned enough or was done with that and wanted to move on, or he got bored, so he moved on to something else. My father has a degree in, well, he went to school to be an electrician because that was his family's business, and he worked there as a business manager for many years until the business closed. Then he was interested in psychology, so he went back to school and he got an associate's degree in psychology. And we ended up, there was five of us kids. I'm the oldest, and there's five of us. And he decided to implement some of the theories in psychology into parenting. My father was not a good parent. And even though he was there, he was kind of absent. And then sometimes he would try to get back into the fold, but it really was, we just kind of like were afraid of him. And so, and that is a whole different story that I don't need to dredge up anymore. But my point with knowing my dad, um, if he had a disease that he remembers he has, um, he would do research on that to find out everything he could, anything he wanted to know. When I went through my father's things after he was put into the hospital and then eventually into assisted living, I found notebooks. Like, I have a grand collection of notebooks, and each notebook is for a different thing, and each notebook has its own pen, which never mind. But of sports stats, like, he would watch a game, but he would also take notes. He would know all the players that are on the teams, even the ones he only rooted for the New York Giants football team and New York Yankees baseball team. When I was a kid and liked the LA Dodgers, he used to tease me every time they lost. But that was the only kind of fun thing that my father and I could talk about. Uh, and I kind of outgrew following them a long time ago because, life gets in the way and you start getting interested in other things. When, but also, and these were just filled with things. And I think writing them down helped him remember, and not just by having something written down that you can go back to, but I had found even when I was in high school, it was easy for me to study. I could read it, but if I took notes, I could remember it better. And I do that when I write my reviews. I will take notes so I can know. And it's not like I haven't messed up before and I mixed up my notes and wrote one review for the wrong book, but always fixed it and apologized profusely. But I try to be careful with that. But I do take notes to remember things. I have a TBI myself now. Well, I've had it for almost 20 years, but I've always been a note taker even before I had to worry about my memory. It was just something that writing it down helped me remember. And also, as I was thinking about all the different notes that my dad had. Um, and he had them in this huge box, cardboard box, and it was his filing system. And um, I found that he would notes on when my uh, about my mother in 1990. My mother had a nervous breakdown, and it's set a path for emotional and mental health issues until her death when she, in 1997, she was only 44. But um, in things that had happened to her, um, she had blocked memories of abuse as a child. And one thing, I found a folder that just said Susie, and my mom's name is Sue. Um, my dad was the only one that called her Susie, and she called him Den. So that was their thing. Um, and when I opened it, I thought it was something that my mom had written, but it was all the notes that my dad had written down for his to find out more about what was going on with my mom, and also maybe how he could help her. And then I found notes on when he was, it wasn't until my dad was an adult to realize that he had a TBI and memory issues from that accident when he was 13. He had a very violent temper. He would get frustrated and angry, and my mother was his target. If we became a target, my mother would not allow that. Um, but I found research on him trying to not just analyze what was going on with himself, but also notes and things about his childhood that he didn't even think of when he was a kid, issues with his own father. And after I learned more about that now, hindsight, it would have been nice to know at 16 that my father also had a crappy father. But still, being 16, you would just think that, you don't know much about what's going on, and you just know that your parents should take care of you and they ground you when you do something wrong. Um, but, you know, um, that's kind of one of those things like, what would I do? What would I tell my 16-year-old self? Um, I would say have patience. Seriously, I think anything in life, you have to have patience. And that does not mean I have been impatient. But, anyways, so back to research, there's, excuse me, um, there's more to research than Googling something or searching on the internet for whatever any of those search, and they work. They're great. There are also websites that are really helpful. Like I had mentioned earlier, there's one called the Internet Archive, and you can either view a book, you could borrow a book, or you could actually download it for your own digital collection. Um, but also, you can get your research from actual books. You're writing a book, you should read a book and learn from that. So, not just like, searches and things like that, but actually read um, a book that is on your list and also just, you know, maybe you interview a few people that may know about the topic. And I'm not just talking for like nonfiction books, but you know, if you're writing a fictional book and say you're writing about um, a police officer, well, you would want to know what type of what kind of information you could gain about police procedures, police policy, how it varies from city to city, town to town, state to state. Um, and also a part of the country and things like that. If you were writing about an FBI agent, you would want the same kind of information. If you're writing about a doctor, um, you don't want to use too much doctor jargon, um, but you want to be able to write with authority and expert because if you get something wrong, and I'm not saying it's something that you made up, but if you are talking about something that is real within a story and you are just making it up and it doesn't make sense, it's not really, just because your book's fictional doesn't mean it can't have some factual beings in it, or if it doesn't, it has um, believability, like fairies and fairy tales and mythology and things like that. Even though those stories stem from somewhere, and you might not be able to prove that fairies exist or prove that you know the Odyssey was the truth based on a blind man's storytelling. But the stories are believable, even if in real life improbable. So you really want to make sure that because somebody will call you out on it. If you are talking about baseball or you are talking about soccer or football, but in another country, which is also could be soccer, and they call it football. You really need to have expertise behind that information, even if you're doing a romance and you have the, the one lover is, he's a tennis player and another one is a rock and roll star, or, um, you know, or they more erotic things and behind the scenes kind of details, intimate details. But you want to make sure that you understand what that actually means. Um, if he's a tennis player, he should be able to, he or she, excuse me, if the character is a tennis player, you need to learn what you can about tennis, even if it's just enough to make your character believable. Something I always say to people when they ask for advice is I remember in English classes in high school, they would say, write what you know. Well, write what you know to a point, but then write what you want to know. And that is something I've always said because, I'm writing about something. I don't know much about it yet, but I want to learn. So, not just for my story, but for myself as well. So, um, I've been doing research, and even if it's for a short story, because I want my stories to be believable. So I'd like to thank you for listening. And if you wish for you or your book to be on the show, go to amysbookshelfreviews.com/podcast. Thank you for listening. Be safe and be well.
Thank you for listening to Amy's Bookshelf Reviews. If you are looking to be on the podcast or looking for a book review, you can go to amysbookshelfreviews.com and look for the appropriate navigational menu. Again, thank you all for listening and being a supporter of this podcast and of the Amy's Bookshelf Reviews professional reviewers of books and audiobooks. Thank you all. Be safe and be well. Your Tears, A Struggle for Justice, the 2022 expanded version. Anna's second chance ignited a fierce fight for her life and the pursuit of justice. Anna Coleman is a victim of domestic violence, and she has to navigate not only the justice system, but the reality of what her husband did to her. This story also